Hi, this is Marvin Faure, coach at Alpine Cols and partner to the Marmotte. The purpose of this video is to give you some insider information concerning the last-minute changes to the course at the Marmotte this year, and to analyze for you what it means in terms of how to manage your ride for the best. The new course is 11 kilometers longer than it has been for the last few years, as well as including an extra 530 meters of climbing. I've added the previous course in the dotted line here so you can see the difference. The first change is that we'll go over the Col de la Croix de Fer instead of the Glandon, adding a bit less than 4 kilometers and 140 meters of climbing. Interestingly, this takes us back to the original course from over 30 years ago. The second change, and this was not in the original course, is that after the first part of the descent of the Croix de Fer, we'll turn right at the Pont de Belleville and climb the Col de Mollard, descending all the way to the valley at Villargondran. This is the reverse of what the professionals did on the recent stage at the Dauphiné. Finally, a good 10-kilometer of main road in the valley has been cut from the route because we join the main road much further along at Saint-Julien. This is what the profile looks like, with the new part circled in red. These are the positives that I see in the new route. We've eliminated 10 kilometers on the main road in the Maurienne Valley, which was never much fun. It's an attractive route over the Croix de Fer than the Mollard, and because it's tougher, it reinforces the legend of the Marmotte. There are perhaps a couple of negatives, though. First, it's a pity the announcement is so late, but that's the way it is. And indeed, it makes a tough event harder still. So for those of you who are very, very concerned about it, this is going to make things a little bit harder. Still, as we say in my family, you get what you get and you don't get upset. It's important to point out a couple of changes in the cutoff times. The cutoff time at the Galibier is now at 16:15. And the cutoff time at Bourg d'Oisans is now at 6:30. So it's an extra half an hour on what it used to be. Now let's take a look at the profile of the Col du Mollard itself on the side we'll be climbing it. It's 6 kilometers long and rises 410 meters. There are a couple of red sections and even a short black section. The first steep bit is immediately after crossing the bridge, when you can expect slightly less than 10% for a kilometer. 4 kilometers later, and after an easy half kilometer in the middle, we'll reach the second steep section where it pitches up to 10.5% for a couple of hundred meters before another 600 meters or so at 8.3%. I recommend you be prudent on these two steep sections. It might not be too smart to power up them at threshold. The descending side is in two distinct parts. The first half is non-technical and straightforward through pastures and a couple of villages. The second part is very different, quite a bit steeper, and above all, much more technical. Here's the second part of the descent, which some might call hairpin heaven and others hairpin hell. Depending on how you count hairpins, there are between 40 and 50 of them. The next thing to know is there's a nasty surprise soon after you reach the bottom. The route follows a quiet B road initially, and the first 1 kilometer is flat, and then rather abruptly, the road climbs at 10 to 12% for a full kilometer, then eases off a bit and then continues with another 500 meters at 10%. So again, I don't recommend powering up these sessions, especially after the long descent. This would be a good way to provoke cramps. Now, a few words about the feed stations. First, what you can expect to find there in terms of food and drink, and then where they are on the course. The Marmotte's nutrition and hydration partner this year is PowerBar. You can expect to see their products at the feed stations, and especially the energized advanced power bars, ISO active energy drink mix, and a good selection of power gels. In addition, there'll be bread, cheese, oranges, bananas, tuck biscuits, and petit beurre sweet biscuits. So all of that will be on the main feed stations. Now, for the location of the feed stations, the first one is on the Croix de Fer, the second is at Valois, the third at the Galibier, on the climb side before the tunnel and not on the summit like in previous years, and then the fourth at Bourg d'Oisans at the foot of Alpe d'Huez. In addition, there'll be water available at Saint-Michel, just before the telegraph, and at the summit of the telegraph itself. My thoughts and recommendations for the feed stations are as follows. As I said recently in my video on how to get your best result at the Marmotte, you should be aiming at consuming about 90 grams of carbs or close to 400 calories per hour. You'll need to plan carefully how much to carry with you and how much and where to pick up more. It will take most people between 2 and 2.5 hours to reach the Croix de Fer. Stop there and refill your bottles. You should have emptied at least a bottle and a half, maybe 2 bottles. So you'll need to refill them. If there's a long queue, you might want to just pitch over the top and stop at the water fountain in Saint-Saulin-d'Arve, which is halfway down the descent. Pick up food, of course, at the summit if needed. If you're able to carry enough, then obviously you can go without that. It will then take between 1.5 hours and 2 hours to reach Saint-Michel down after the Mollard, along the telegraph, along the Maurienne Valley and at the foot of the telegraph. You should stop there if you've got less than 1 bottle left. This is only a water stop. Climbing the telegraph will take you between 1 hour and 1 hour and a quarter for most people. Stop at the top if you've got less than 1/4 bottle of water left, because it only takes about 20 minutes to Valois. So if you've got a little bit of water, you can push on to Valois. Valois is a major feed station. Everybody will stop there. You should definitely stop for food and at least 1 full bottle to get you to the top of the Galibier. Probably 2 bottles. Most people will take between 1.5 hours and 2 hours to climb the Galibier from there. So once you get to the top, you should stop to pick up enough to be sure that you have enough to fully rehydrate and refuel before Bourg d'Oisans, which is that very long descent from the Galibier itself and then all the way down the valley to Bourg d'Oisans. That'll take most people between 1.25 hours and 1 hour and 45 minutes. It's a long way, and you definitely need to eat and drink during that whole descent. Finally, at Bourg d'Oisans, once you reach there, you should know that it'll most likely take you between 1.25 hours and 2 hours to reach the finish. So make sure you have enough food and water to do that. So to finish up, here's a brief summary of the main consequences of the course change. The first is the time to complete the whole course, which will probably take for the top 10, top 50 or so, it'll probably take an extra 40 minutes or thereabouts. Most people will take between 1 hour and 1 hour 30 more. So if you are planning on or expecting it to take 10 hours, you might expect closer to 11.5 hours to complete with these course changes. Beware, the cutoff has only been extended by 30 minutes or so, so we have to expect more people than usual to be unable to finish, sadly. This is probably not the organizers' fault if we're fair to them. This will be a restriction by the local authorities. So pacing, what you should do, in my view, is be slightly more conservative than you were planning, especially in terms of limiting short, hard efforts. So cut it back by a handful of watts, 2-3 watts, maybe 5 watts at the most, unless you feel you're really unlikely to be able to make it. But especially be careful about the hard efforts and cut those right back. Finally, consequences are on nutrition and hydration. It's going to take longer, so it's even more important to take on the right amount of food and water. So do not forget, it's a good tip is to set a reminder, a sort of alarm on your Garmin to ping you every 10 or 15 minutes to remind you to eat and drink. All right, well, thanks for listening. If you would like more tips for the Marmotte, check out my presentations on YouTube. Otherwise, I wish you good luck, stay safe, and see you on the start line.